I've been like like okay, don't mind that. But last weekend, I ran, I ran 5K. Sorry, the camera shook. This Wednesday, I ran 4K for the regionals, and yesterday, I ran a 2K for my school board. I guess that makes me a runner. What do I want to say with this? In the Bible, Paul tells Paul says that we must run the good race, and he wants to finish the race, that good race. I'll pop up the verse because I honestly kind of forgot. I just remember the big picture. But he tells us to run. He tells us to finish and to stay firm in the faith. To do it. As a runner, I can tell you it's not easy to finish a race. It's not easy. And I can tell you it's even harder to do well. In fact, I hadn't really trained for my race. I mean, I had, but not like other girls. Like some girls are literally, they spend 2 hours each day at school with actual coaches and dietitians to run a race. Like, I'm just like running for fun. Like, for fun, I like running. So I had trained for maybe a month. Well, training. I was just running the distance. And what was crazy, like absolutely insane, I ran the best race of my entire life. Like 5K. I usually run that in 23 minutes when it's good. I ran it in 22:10. And this is not to boast, but it's to give glory to God because I know it was not for me. I could not have done that on my own. I hadn't had enough training. It doesn't make sense. So God gave me strength to run my actual race, and he did the same thing on Wednesday. I ran the 4K in 17:42. That's 4:25 per kilometers. I've never done that. My best at 4K time on a treadmill, so like straight, was 18:08, and I was so exhausted. And I ran 17:42 on a cross country. That means there's like hills. Well, where am I even going with this? I felt God telling me to film about running, metaphorically, like Paul says, to run the good race. I've been a Christian for a year and a half, about a year. And I found it hard. And actually, it reminds me a lot of the phases of running. If I take the 5K as an example, you start off as a sprint. Okay, well, not too fast because that's bad for running. Anyways, you start up faster than the rest of the race. Everything is going amazing. That's like the honeymoon phase with God. Like the first few months, you're like, oh my God, you're amazing, God. Everything's going perfectly. You have no trials, no suffering. You're just so at peace with God. You're in love. You're like, oh, this is amazing. And then you start slowing down a bit because you're entering the first, 500 meters. But it's still going really well. Like up till the 1.52K mark, you're a bit slower. It's a bit more difficult. You start to feel it, but it's really not that bad. You're like, you know what? I'm gonna do amazing this race. I can finish it super fast. And so that's like the next few months where, you start to recognize God more deeply. You start to slow down a bit, see Him in your everyday life. And then you hit the 2K mark, or the 2.5K mark. That's when it's tough. It's not tough yet, but it's starting to, you feel the sweat, huh? Yeah. That's when God says, okay, now it's time to sanctify you. And if you're a Christian, you know that feeling. When God says, it's time to make you holy. Yeah, if you haven't been there yet, yeah, it's coming. Basically, God is going to put you through trials and tests and suffering, but not suffering because He's always going to be there. And at that stage, you're starting to be like, yeah, I do need you, huh? God, it's not easy. It's not perfect being Christian. Huh? And you start to be like God, I might need a bit of strength here, you know. It's starting to become tough, you know. Then you hit the 3.5k mark, 3.5 kilometers. That's probably the worst part of the whole race. You're dead. And you're still far enough from the finish where you feel like it's never gonna end. You're like, what? I still have 1.5 kilometers left, and this is like, or even the 3 kilometer mark where you're like, I have 2 full kilometers left. Like, you feel dead. At that point, I don't know, when I run, I feel absolutely drained. I can't keep running. I feel like I can't keep running. And that's when God really pushes you. That's when God is really testing you. And he's like forcing you in a way, but not in a mean way, because God is really good and he's really kind, and you know I love him, so it's not like a mean way. He's like, you've got to rely on me, you know? Like, you're not gonna be able to get through the 3k mark without stopping to walk if you don't hang on to me, and if you don't pull strength from me. He doesn't expect us to keep on sprinting for the whole race. Biologically, we can't do that unless we've trained and blah blah blah. Like, I'm not counting exceptions, but for a normal person, you can't just sprint a full race on your own strength. And that's what I couldn't do at the 3k mark. I was dead. Like, I shouldn't be able to keep going. And then I was like, God, I need you. God, I need you. Keep me going. God, give me strength. And by prayer and by holding fast to what God is, who he is, what he wants, and his strength and his power, not on my own, acknowledging that I can't do this on my own. He gave me strength, and I finished the race at the same speed. I kept the pace. And that's like in our religious lives where God gives us trials, and he doesn't expect us to keep it on our own. He wants us to rely on him. In fact, I believe that some of those trials, sufferings, tests, whatever, are done on purpose so that we have to learn to rely on God for everything, for strength, for wisdom, for vision. And he's done that in my life, and it's not fun. But when I realized, you know what, when I surrendered it to God, and I was like, God, take it. I can't do it. I was literally crying, and I was like, God, I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't take care of this on my own. It's too much. He took it, and he gave me so much peace. So much peace. And I was like, wait, that's it? I surrendered it, and now I'm free? What? It's not even that hard anymore. And he's done that on multiple occasions, where he really wants us to rely on him. And if you stand firm in those moments of trials, where you're at the difficult part of the race, you're going up a hill, you know, you're up the hill, it seems to never end, and you need God, he will show up. He will be there for you. He will. I guarantee it. If you ask him in faith, without doubting, he will show up for you. And then you're about at the 4k mark, where you have only 1 kilometer left. At my race, when I ran the 5k, the last sprint was going downhill, so that's really easy to run. And sometimes that represents the times when in life things are going great with God. You're going downhill in the sense that you're running fast, not in the sense that things are going downhill. You know what I mean. You're running super well, super fast. It's the last kilometer. You see the end. You're like, God, I see what you're doing. This is easy. Thank you. And you get the strength to run the last sprint and to catch up to the other guys and win the race or finish it. And then God is so proud of you. He's like, my daughter or my son, you finished the race. You did it. And even if sometimes, because cross country is literally hills the whole time, it's not fun. Well, it is, because I like running, but in life, that's what it is with God too. Ups and downs, difficult moments, and times where everything is going so smoothly. But in either times, you need God. You need him to push you, to give you strength, to rely on him. So when you're at that 3k mark, 3.5k, where you're like, you feel like you're gonna die, you feel like you can't keep going, you can't do it, don't try and rely on your own strength. You're not gonna be able to. God doesn't expect you to. You can't on your own strength. You can't. But if you rely on him, He's created trees. He's created mountains. He's created the path you're treading in right now, you're running in. So you can count on him. You can. Ask him for strength. He'll give it to you. And you'll get through it. And eventually, you'll reach that last kilometer, that last few meters, where you get to run down a hill.